She's underwater in her net approval rating. 33% of people reported their dislike for her.
January 20th, 2026. LAX Airport, mid-afternoon. Travelers rushed past with carry-ons rolling over tile floors, departure boards flickered overhead, and camera flashes popped in the distance. It looked like any other busy Los Angeles travel day until attention quietly shifted toward one familiar figure moving through the terminal. According to multiple social media posts and eyewitness chatter online, Meghan Markle entered the security line with her usual composure. Dark sunglasses in place, her team close behind, moving with practiced efficiency. Observers described her demeanor as calm and controlled, the kind of confidence that comes from navigating public spaces under constant scrutiny. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Then, according to those same online accounts, security personnel directed her luggage for additional screening. There was no commotion, no raised voices, no public scene, just procedure. Airport screening experts note that secondary inspections are routine when scanner images display dense or unclear shapes inside luggage. These flags can be triggered by tightly packed items, unusual layering, or materials that obscure imaging clarity. Witness descriptions circulating online claim several designer suitcases appeared densely packed in uniform blocks rather than loosely filled with typical travel items. That alone, specialists say, can trigger a manual check. What reportedly shifted was the atmosphere. Observers claim her team became more focused, moving from relaxed travel mode to quiet coordination. Phones were lifted. Conversations became hushed. The tone, they say, grew more serious. Not chaotic, not confrontational. Simply tense. From there, speculation accelerated across social media. Some online commentators alleged the luggage contained tightly bundled cash. Others disputed that claim, suggesting the flagged contents could have been documents, packaged goods, or other dense materials that commonly trigger scanner alerts. It is important to emphasize, no official agency has confirmed what the luggage contained, and no public statements have been issued regarding the inspection. Security professionals emphasize that transporting significant sums of currency is not illegal. However, international travel regulations in many countries require declarations for amounts exceeding specific thresholds. Such procedures are administrative, not criminal, and are designed to ensure transparency in cross-border financial movement. Online discussions have also raised questions about whether the inspection caused delays or additional documentation checks. Again, no official confirmation has verified these claims. Still, the idea of a routine airport screening involving a globally recognized public figure was enough to ignite the internet. Rumors spread that internal airport footage captured the moment. No footage has surfaced publicly. Aviation analysts note that if such footage exists, it would likely show standard screening procedures rather than misconduct. But in the age of viral speculation, the possibility alone fuels endless threads, commentary videos, and competing narratives. Here's what remains clear. There have been no charges, no official findings, and no verified statements regarding the situation. What appears to have occurred, if anything at all, aligns with routine airport security protocols triggered by scanner anomalies. Yet in today's hyper-connected world, even an ordinary procedure can become a global talking point when it intersects with fame, perception, and public curiosity. And that's where the story truly begins. That distinction matters. But it also explains why the story keeps moving. When official channels stay silent, the internet rarely does. In the absence of verified statements, speculation tends to fill the gaps, and unusual claims can travel faster than facts. One reason this situation has drawn so much online attention is the broader context of international travel rules. Financial compliance experts note that when travelers transport large sums of currency across borders, declaration requirements often apply. These procedures exist to ensure transparency and to prevent financial irregularities. They are administrative safeguards, not accusations of wrongdoing. In online discussions, some reports have suggested that officials sought clarification about the purpose or documentation connected to the flagged luggage. Such questions, if they occurred, would not be unusual. Customs and security personnel routinely request explanations when items require additional review. Unverified claims circulating on social platforms also suggest that multiple explanations may have been offered regarding the contents and purpose of the items being transported. Commentators have speculated about possibilities ranging from business-related payments to personal financial matters. Financial analysts, however, point out that most large transactions today move electronically through regulated banking systems because those methods provide documentation, security, and traceability. That observation alone has fueled debate online, not as proof of wrongdoing, but because it appears inconsistent with modern financial norms. Timing has added another layer to the conversation. Some commentators have pointed out that the alleged airport incident surfaced not long after Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's widely publicized visit to Nigeria, which was presented publicly as a charitable and advocacy-focused trip connected to Invictus-related initiatives. At the time, coverage focused on community outreach and veteran support efforts. Reports also noted that the couple traveled via private aircraft. Media outlets later referenced the aircraft's ownership in broader reporting related to unrelated legal matters involving individuals in the aviation sector. No official link has been established between those matters and the Sussexes. That distinction is critical. Public records cited in media coverage describe legal issues connected to aviation executive Alan Anima. Those allegations relate to financial matters attributed to him personally and do not implicate Meghan Markle or Prince Harry. Still, observers online continue to debate the optics. Accepting private air travel can raise questions about due diligence, particularly for globally recognized public figures. Supporters argue that travel logistics are often handled by hosts or event organizers and that guests may not be aware of every business detail behind transportation arrangements. Critics counter that individuals at that level typically rely on vetting processes to assess reputational risks. This is where online discussions begin connecting dots, at least in theory. One narrative references reported financial scrutiny procedures at an airport. Another references unrelated legal reporting about an aviation figure. Side by side, the timing has fueled speculation, but correlation is not confirmation. There has been no verified claim that Meghan Markle participated in or had knowledge of any financial misconduct. Observers and analysts alike stress that coincidental timing or overlapping headlines do not establish factual connection. Still, when public figures intersect with procedural scrutiny and high-profile news cycles, questions naturally follow, not because answers exist, but because curiosity does. And in the digital age, curiosity can take on a life of its own. It doesn't imply guilt. It simply means attention increases. And that's exactly why online chatter about alleged airport security footage has escalated so quickly. In today's travel environment, major international airports operate under extensive surveillance systems. Checkpoints, scanners, and customs areas are routinely recorded for safety, operational review, and legal accountability. Aviation security professionals explain that when secondary screening occurs, the process itself is typically documented as part of standard procedure. If footage exists in this case, it would likely show nothing more than a routine sequence: a traveler approaching security, luggage moving through scanners, and personnel conducting additional inspection after an item triggers review protocols. Some online claims suggest that the opening of luggage and any subsequent conversations were captured on camera. Others speculate about visible confusion or follow-up phone calls. However, without verified access to such footage, these descriptions remain speculative. What matters is understanding how these systems work. Unlike paparazzi clips or edited social media videos, airport security recordings are part of controlled operational systems. They are created for documentation and safety compliance, not public interpretation. In certain circumstances, audio may also be recorded depending on the facility and applicable regulations, but that varies by jurisdiction and procedure. Experts emphasize an important point that often gets lost in viral conversations. Additional screening is not an accusation, it is verification. Security personnel are trained to resolve anomalies detected by imaging equipment, regardless of who the traveler is. It is also not illegal to carry cash. Transporting money is lawful in most jurisdictions. What regulations require, particularly for international travel, is proper declaration when amounts exceed reporting thresholds. Travelers may be asked to explain the origin, purpose, and destination of significant funds. These requirements exist to promote transparency and compliance, not to assign wrongdoing. Compliance specialists note that high-value cash transport often triggers procedural review simply because physical currency is harder to trace than electronic transfers. That distinction affects documentation requirements, not legality. In the modern financial world, large transactions are commonly conducted through regulated channels such as banks, escrow services, corporate accounts, or certified instruments. These methods create clear records that protect all parties involved. Because of this, analysts say the movement of substantial physical currency can attract procedural attention, particularly when electronic alternatives are readily available. This does not mean wrongdoing has occurred. It means verification steps may be applied. That nuance helps explain why the topic continues trending online. The conversation is driven less by confirmed facts and more by perceived inconsistencies between common financial practices and the scenarios described in unverified reports. Financial professionals emphasize that legitimate transactions often involve accountants, legal oversight, documentation trails, and traceable transfers. These safeguards provide transparency and reduce risk. When physical cash is used instead, additional compliance steps may apply to ensure regulatory standards are met. Some online discussions have also suggested that secondary screenings may have occurred during previous travels. However, frequent travelers, including diplomats, executives, and public figures, are often subject to additional screening simply due to travel patterns, security protocols, or random selection procedures. Such screenings are routine and not indicative of misconduct. That distinction is essential. In high-visibility situations, routine procedures can appear extraordinary when viewed through the lens of public scrutiny. When a globally recognized figure encounters standard security protocol, the moment can quickly take on a narrative life of its own. And in the digital age, even routine verification can become a viral mystery, fueled not by confirmed facts, but by the powerful momentum of speculation. Secondary screenings aren't always about cash. Sometimes they're triggered by high-value items, unusual packing densities, or shapes that automated imaging systems are trained to flag for closer inspection. Modern airport security doesn't rely on guesswork. Every secondary check is logged. Every anomaly detected by scanners is recorded, and every resolution, whether simple clarification or further review, becomes part of routine documentation. Aviation compliance professionals explain that these records are maintained for operational accountability and safety standards. They are not punitive in themselves. One additional screening can be random or procedural. However, with frequent international travel, patterns of flagged items, if they occur, may prompt closer administrative review simply to ensure compliance standards are consistently met. That does not indicate wrongdoing. It reflects how large security systems maintain accuracy and transparency. In some cases, when questions involve financial reporting thresholds or documentation requirements, information may be reviewed by appropriate compliance authorities. This is not an accusation process. It is verification, ensuring that reporting requirements, declarations, and documentation align with regulations governing international travel and financial transparency. Sources familiar with high-profile travel management note that when situations draw unusual scrutiny, professional teams often consult legal and compliance experts. These specialists understand customs reporting, financial disclosure requirements, and administrative procedures. Bringing in such expertise is not unusual. It is a precautionary step to ensure proper handling of complex regulatory environments. Observers say that in high-visibility cases, issues are often resolved administratively through clarification, documentation, or corrective filings if necessary. Quiet resolutions are common because procedural reviews are routine within international compliance systems. Analysts also point out a practical reality. Once documentation exists across multiple agencies, records are retained according to regulatory requirements. That does not mean enforcement action follows. It simply means documentation exists as part of standard operational record keeping. Speculation online often overlooks this distinction. No charges have been announced. No official findings have been released. Everything circulating publicly remains discussion, interpretation, and conjecture rather than confirmed fact. Legal experts emphasize that financial reporting violations, if they occur, are evaluated based on documentation, intent, and cooperation. In many compliance cases, especially involving administrative misunderstandings, outcomes may involve clarification, corrected filings, or financial penalties rather than severe legal consequences. Intentional wrongdoing requires a higher evidentiary threshold. Cooperation and documentation often matter more than public speculation. That's why many legal analysts caution against assuming extreme outcomes without verified findings. While online commentary may predict severe penalties, experts note such outcomes are unlikely without clear evidence of deliberate misconduct. Still, uncertainty fuels conversation. And in the world of public image, perception can sometimes matter as much as reality. Brand strategists note that high-profile figures operate in an environment where reputational risk is carefully monitored by corporate partners. Companies evaluate stability, trust, and public sentiment when making long-term partnership decisions. Even unverified controversy can trigger internal risk assessments, not because conclusions have been reached, but because uncertainty affects market perception. Industry analysts stress that this does not mean partnerships collapse automatically. Major corporations evaluate trends, audience engagement, and brand alignment over time. They consider data, not headlines. Recent projects and media ventures are often assessed through performance metrics, audience reach, and strategic fit. Public speculation alone rarely determines outcomes. Yet, in the digital era, narratives can accelerate faster than facts. That dynamic helps explain why conversations continue to circulate. Not because conclusions have been reached, but because unanswered questions invite interpretation. For now, what remains most important is clarity. There has been no official confirmation of wrongdoing, no enforcement action announced, and no verified documentation released publicly. Until facts emerge, the story remains less about certainty and more about how modern compliance systems, public visibility, and online speculation intersect in a world where routine procedures can quickly become global headlines. Then there's Prince Harry. Commentators sometimes note that when legal or compliance questions arise around one spouse, administrative considerations can occasionally ripple into broader family logistics, particularly where international travel, residency status, or documentation are involved. Nothing automatic, nothing predetermined, but enough to create quiet pressure behind the scenes as advisors ensure every requirement remains in order. What stands out most to media observers is the public restraint. There have been no detailed briefings, no aggressive legal counterattacks, no rapid-fire press releases dismissing the circulating reports. In many high-profile situations, public figures respond immediately when claims are inaccurate, issuing denials, legal notices, or clear statements. Here, the response has been measured. That restraint has fueled two primary interpretations among analysts. One is strategic caution. If any procedural review is underway, speaking prematurely could complicate compliance processes. The other is tactical silence, allowing speculation to burn out rather than amplifying it with repeated responses. Crisis communication experts note that silence can be a deliberate risk management choice. A strong denial issued too early can backfire if later documentation introduces nuance or contradiction. In high-visibility situations, teams sometimes prioritize controlled timing over immediate reaction. That is strategy, not proof of wrongdoing. Timing matters in another way as well. Meghan is widely seen as continuing efforts to strengthen her brand identity and long-term influence. Extended cycles of speculation, compliance discussions, procedural questions, online debate. Create an environment that corporate partners monitor carefully, not out of sentiment, but risk assessment. If any formal action were ever announced, industry analysts say companies would evaluate their exposure quickly. That is standard business practice, not personal judgment. From a royal perspective, critics argue situations like this reinforce long-standing concerns expressed within the institution about scrutiny, judgment, and public trust. Supporters counter that uncertainty does not equal fault. And that distinction matters. Nothing confirmed here establishes wrongdoing. What exists is uncertainty, a space where procedural review, misunderstanding, or incomplete public information can all coexist. Explanations may exist that simply have not been released. The conversation continues not because of proof, but because timing, optics, and silence rarely align neatly in the public imagination. If the claims were entirely fabricated, some argue the response might be louder. Others suggest restraint prevents escalation. For now, the outcome will not be decided online. It will be determined through documentation, compliance review, and formal processes far from headlines and hashtags. And until clarity arrives, attention remains fixed on what comes next. If you found this breakdown insightful, share your perspective below. Do you think this resolves quietly, or is more clarity still ahead?